A pleasant day to everyone. Again, this is Miss Jero, and for today's discussion, I am going to discuss about the defining performance and choosing a measurement approach. And now these are the overview of the topic. So for this lesson, we have here the definition of performance, the determinants of performance, the performance dimensions, approaches to measuring performance. Now, let's define what is performance. By the definition, performance is about the job-related activities which are composed of results and behavior that definitely expected of a worker and how will those activities were executed. And this is came from www.businessdictionary.com. Obviously, the definition of performance does not only include the result of the employee's behavior, but only the behaviors themselves. When we talk about performance, we have two different characteristics that can have a label or can be a label of performance. First is the evaluative. So once we talk about evaluative, this means that such behavior can be judged as negative, neutral, or positive for individual and organizational effectiveness. In other words, the value of this behavior can vary based on whether they make a contribution towards the accomplishment of individual, unit, and even the organizational goals. The second one is the multidimensional. This means that there are many different kinds of behavior that have capacity to advance, or let's say it can be a barriers or hinders to the organizational goals. Next is about how can we determine the performance. So we have here a simple equation which is performance is equal to declarative knowledge multiplied by procedural knowledge and also multiplied by motivation, and that is again performance. Now let's talk about it one by one. First is we have the declarative knowledge. Once we talk about declarative knowledge, these are the information about facts, things, including the information regarding a given task requirements, labels, principles, and goals. And also, once we talk about procedural knowledge, is about a combination of knowing what to do and how to do it, and includes cognitive, physical, perceptual, motor, and even interpersonal skills. And finally, we have here the motivation. So once we talk about motivation, it involves the three types of choice behavior. First is the choice to expend effort. So once we talk about expenditure of efforts, example, I will go to work today. So in that sense, we know that we need to accomplish something. And another thing is the choice of level of effort. So most of the time, once we do a lot of things, we always want to put the best effort on our works. And the last is the choice to persist in the expenditure of that level of effort. Example, I will not give up or I will persist no matter what. Meaning, in that sense, you will not do your job not because that is your job, but also you do your job because you are committed to do your best. Next is about the performance dimensions. Now, in performance dimensions, we have the three performance. First is the task, second is the conceptual, third is the adaptive. Now, let's talk about the task performance. So once we talk about task performance, this include about the behavior of the employee, that whatever they are contributing to the core of the transformation and even the maintenance activities that they need to do inside the organization. And these are the activities that again they need to transform. Example, a certain employee is working in a production that they need to transform raw materials into the goods and services that are produced by the organization. Another thing is that task performance is about the activity that help with the transformation process by replenishing the supply of raw materials or distributing its finished products or even providing informational planning or important planning rather coordination, supervising, or staff functions that enable the organization to function effectively and efficiency. And also, in terms of contextual performance, it says here that non-job specific behavior that contribute to the organization effectiveness, meaning they have the sense of citizenship inside the organization. In contextual performance, this include the behaviors such as first, they are very persistent and they are enthusiastic in giving their extra effort when it's necessary. So sometimes even if the overtime is not paid, they still want to finish the job, even it will require a lot of time. And also, by doing this one, they have automatically they volunteer themselves to do the tasks that are not formally part of the job. So somehow we do these things, even though this is not our job, but because we love the process and we need to finish the job, we tend to volunteer ourselves to do the task. By doing so also, we help and also cooperate with others. By example, we assist or help our coworkers or even our customers. And even we follow the organizational rules and procedures. Like for example, we respect the authority, we comply whatever the values and the policies of the organization. And by doing this kind of performance, we also have some endorsement or supporting or depending organization objectives. So both task and contextual performance are important dimension to take into account in performance management system. And for the last is we have the adaptive performance. So obviously this is the ability of employees or new hire employees or unemployees that are came from different department that are assigned with different department also, they are able to adopt to dynamic work situation. So meaning they can adjust easily, they can understand the change in the workplace, and also employees that are become more versatile and value the importance in the success of organization. All the employees who display adaptive performance in organization tend to have more advantages in career opportunity, unlike those employees who are not adaptable to changes. Again, the only permanent in the world is changes. So we need to adapt everything that can definitely help our career or can develop our skills. Next is we also have some of the approaches on how can we measure the performance. In measuring the performance, we have the three things to consider. First is the behavior, the result, and also the traits approach. Let's start with the behavior. So once we talk about behavior, this is how to emphasize how employees to do their job. And those not considers employees' traits or the outcomes resulting from their behavior. This is also a basically a process-oriented approach that emphasizes how an employee does the job. Having this behavior approach, we can also encounter some of these circumstances. First is the link between behavior and result is not obvious. Why? Because sometimes the relationship between the behaviors and the desired outcome is not clear. In some cases, the desired result may not be achieved in spite of the fact that the right behavior are in place. Another circumstances is about the outcome occur in the distant future. This is when the desired result will not be seen for months or even years. The measurement of behavior is beneficial. And also, the poor results are due to causes beyond the performer's control. So when the results of the employee's performance are beyond to the control of our employees, it makes sense to emphasize the performance of behavior. For example, consider a situation involving two assembly line workers, one of them working in the day shift and the other the night shift. When the assembly line gets stuck because of the technical problems, the employee working during the day receives immediate technical assistance. So the assembly line is back in motion in less than 5 minutes. So by contrast, the employees working the night shift has very little technical support, and therefore when the assembly line breaks down, it takes about 45 minutes for it to be up and running again. If we measure results, we would conclude that the performance of the day shift employee is far superior to that of the night shift employee, but this will be an incorrect conclusion. So meaning both employees may be equally competent and do not and do the job equally well. So the result produced by these employees are uneven because they depend on the amount and the quality of technical assistance they receive when the assembly line is stacked. Next is the result approach. So in this approach, it emphasizes that employees produce. The result approach emphasizes the outcome and the result produced by the employees. It does not consider the traits that employees may possess or how employees do their job. This is basically a bottom line approach that is not concerned about employee behavior and process, but instead they are focusing on what is produced. Example, the sales, the numbers of account acquired, or the time spent with clients on telephone, or the numbers of errors. So defining a measuring result usually take less than defining a measuring behavior needed to achieve these results. Also, this approach is usually seen as most cost effective. Why? Because results can be less expensive to track the behavior. So overall, the data resulting from the result approach seem to be objective and are intuitively very appealing. In the result approach, we also have most appropriate under some circumstances. First is the workers are skilled in the needed behavior. In here, an emphasis on result is appropriate when workers have the necessary knowledge and skills to do the work. In such situation, workers knows what specific behavior needed to achieve the desired results, and they are also sufficient skilled to know what to do correct any process related problems when the desired results are not obtained. Another circumstances is about the behavior and results are obviously related. In some situations, certain results can be obtained only if a workers engage in a certain specific behavior. Another circumstances is about the results show consistent improvement over time. When results improve consistently over time, it is an indication that workers are aware of the behaviors needed to complete the job successfully. In this situation, it is appropriate to adopt a result approach to assessing performance. And another circumstance is that there are many ways to do the job right. When there are different ways in which one can do the task required for a job, a result approach is appropriate. An emphasis on the result can be beneficial. Why? Is it because it could encourage employees to achieve the desired outcomes in creative and also in terms of innovative ways. And for the last is we have the trait approach. This approach emphasizes the individual performer and ignores the specific situation, behaviors, and results. If one adopts the traits behavior, if one adopts the traits approach, raters evaluate relatively stable traits. This include the abilities such as cognitive abilities which are not easily trainable or personality which is not likely to change over time. For example, the performance measurement may consist of assessing an employee's intelligence and conscientiousness at the end of each review period. So this approach is justified based on the positive relationship found between abilities such as intelligence and even the personal traits such as conscientiousness. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening.